Hello, and welcome to Secrets to a Successful Job Application. I'm Tanya Almack, and I'm happy to have you here with me today. This is being offered as part of Gwinnett County Public Library's 2020 version of our Job Seekers Bootcamp. So this is just one of 4 modules that you'll be able to access, so please be sure to check those others out as well. Today we'll be discussing general application tips for job seekers. We'll be looking at an application example, and we'll go over a few safety tips for job searching. If you haven't looked for a job for a while, some things have changed quite a bit, maybe since your last time. So let's go over some of the useful things that you should gather before you start applying for jobs. You're going to want to have resumes, cover letters, and references, which you might have already expected. But in addition to that, you might also need a spreadsheet or a flash drive to document where you've applied. And we're going to talk more about that in just a second. You're going to want a designated Gmail address and password that's professional, just for job seeking. You are going to want your driver's license number handy, your social security number handy. Yes, you sometimes have to submit that now, and a calculator for tests. You may find that you run across math or other logic tests, and that a calculator would be great to have on hand. So one of the things that I just mentioned was that you should probably have a spreadsheet to use as an application tracking log. The reason that this works great for you is that if you apply for a job, you're going to need to put a username and password into the company's website. And it's going to work great for you if you have a spreadsheet reminding you of all of the things that you listed and what you applied for. This is a visual example of what the spreadsheet might look like. You should list your username and password. Very, very, very important there. And a little bit about the application and the resume that you sent. You can actually link the copy of your resume on your actual spreadsheet if you know how to do that. If not, ask a librarian how. We can help you. Some general job searching tips are that you should definitely use that professional email address. A Gmail is usually preferred. It's a great way to show that you're up to date on your technology skills. And if you're using an old Hotmail or Yahoo, one, it's probably not a great first impression for an employer, because it's an old email format that isn't used as widely now. And it also might not be that it has a professional username as part of it. You should keep your resume format pretty simple. The more difficult your resume format is, the harder it is for a computer to read it and enter part of the information into fields, either for you to finish filling out the application or for the recruiter to actually look at your information. So it's easier for the computer if you keep it in a simple format. You want to use words that the hiring managers might search. And a great way to do that is when you're looking at a job posting, you can actually look at the posting and take some of the keywords that describe your skills and put them in your resume. So, for example, if you're applying for accounting jobs and also retail jobs, you might have a basic resume that's a retail job application resume, and you might have one that's for accounting jobs. And they're 2 different resumes, but each time you submit it, you're going to want to change your keywords to match the job posting to bring out what your skills are. There's actually a way that you can put your skills on your resume so that if a recruiter logs in to look at the resumes, they can actually search a keyword and pull your resume up. This is basically a way to try to make yourself stand out from the crowd. The way it works now is a little bit different than the way it used to work, and we'll go into that a little bit more throughout this presentation. You don't want any errors on it. There can be nothing wrong on formatting or spacing on resumes. If there's a space to upload a cover letter, you should always send one. I know that a lot of people say that people are not looking at cover letters anymore. That may be true, but if your resume gets pulled out of the pile of resumes for a closer look, and the recruiter notices that you didn't include a cover letter, that can sometimes send the idea that you were too lazy to create one and that you did this in a hurry. It can also make it impossible for a recruiter to learn more about you. You might want to mention your background or why you specifically are interested in this job, something to make you stand out from the crowd, and something that's honest and heartfelt, maybe even. So today we are going to actually be going through a job application for working at Petco. So the reason that I have chosen this application is that it has all of the parts that applications tend to have, and it's got everything in one application. So even if you're not looking for retail jobs, the same things apply for a lot of what I'm about to tell you. So we're not picking on Petco intentionally. They just have a very comprehensive job application process, and it's the best one that I can actually show you all of the parts that I want to show you. You're going to see it's going to be a little bit long. One of the things I'd like to tell you that is, if you see a job posting or you get an email in your inbox about a potential job, it's a dangerous thing to click that link and go to a website, because sometimes people fake websites to get your information. And since sometimes you're giving social security numbers and driver's license numbers to companies, it's a great idea not to click the link from an email or from a job posting and to go to the company's website directly instead. So in this case, I went to petco.com and I am on their page. If I were to scroll all the way down to the very bottom of the page, I can click on careers. This isn't on your screen, but I'll just tell you how I got here. If you click careers, it's going to take you to some job postings, and I clicked on the one that was guest advisor, sales associate, part-time. You want to read this entire job description. You want to read it through at least twice. You're going to be pulling out some keywords of things that you know how to do. And if this is a guest advisor or sales associate position in a retail store, then I would say that you want to pull out some customer service skills probably that you have, and some other things that match this. There are probably some keywords you could highlight in this if you were to print it and highlight and you could add those into your skills or add it to your resume that you're going to upload as part of this job application. So this is a part-time job application, but it is the same process for full-time. And we're going to go through this together. So let's click at the top, Apply Now. When I click Apply Now, a couple of things to note. If I am filling out this job application, I'm giving my information to Petco. If you look at the top at the URL or web address where the green arrow is pointing, you see that it says petco.taleo.net. I happen to know that Taleo is one of the two biggest applicant tracking systems that exist for companies to use. An applicant tracking system is basically a computer software that a company buys to use to gather applications from potential employees. So basically, in this case, Petco has paid Taleo to be their applicant tracking system, which means that when you're submitting all of your information for jobs, you're giving it to both Petco and you're giving it to Taleo. And Taleo is actually building a virtual stack of resumes and applications for any position. And then someone logs into Taleo's website who works at Petco, and they can actually see the stack of job applications in the queue. They don't necessarily look at all of the applications. In fact, a very small fraction of job applications actually get looked at by human eyes. And when a recruiter actually looks through the top applications in the stack, they only spend about 6 seconds looking at each application before they decide who they're going to call. So you have a very, very small window of getting an employer's attention with an application or resume when a lot of people are applying. The best way for you to pull your resume toward the top is to actually change the keywords on the actual resume to match the job description and to upload cover letters and do all of the process. I know that that sounds like a lot of work for one part-time job, but it also increases your odds of getting called about that job. So it's time that you should probably spend, and that's why it's so important for you to keep a spreadsheet of everywhere you've applied and what you've given to that company in case you get a call. It might be 10 months later, it might be 2 months later, it might be 2 weeks later, but you've applied for so many jobs that you probably don't remember what you uploaded. So it's always a great way for you to get a leg up on everyone else applying if you're someone who's actually keeping track and doing this in a very methodical and organized way. So we are agreeing to give Petco and Taleo our applicant tracking system. That's going to be, this is their site for Petco that we're going to be going through, and you're going to see what I mean a little bit as we go through here. It's a long process. Let's get started. So it also tells you, if you look at the second green arrow down, it tells you if you've worked there before, you can log in. So it says returning user and username and password down there in the middle at the bottom. But in our case, it's our first time applying. So we're going to click don't have an account, new user. And once you click new user, it's going to take you to this page. Now there's some things I wanted to point out to you here. This particular job, if you look on the right side of the screen at the top with the green arrow, has 12 steps to apply for it. That's part of why I like this application process. It shows you a little bit of everything you'll come across at any other job place pretty much. There's very few tests or other things that you won't see as part of this. So let's go through this together. The other green arrows are pointing out that there's 12 steps. The list of the steps is in that window going across in the brown and white area at the top of your screen where it says personal information, company questions. That's the list of the steps that are coming up next. So you can kind of get an idea of what you might need to gather before we even get started, right? You can save and continue. If you look at the arrow on the left and keep going throughout the application, you can also save it as a draft, and you can also quit and come back to it. But you're going to need that username and that password to get back into the system, so I hope you've written that down. Anything that has a red asterisk on this page has to be filled out. It will not let you go to the next page until you filled it out. On this one, the green arrow on the left is actually highlighting a place. The question was, where did you hear about this job? And if you click the drop down, this is what pops up. And these are some places that you're going to want to go to look for jobs. Now, some of these are general job searching places and some of these are more specific. So for instance, if you wanted to work at Petco corporate and you were someone who had a background in logistics and moving things from point A to point B in distribution, then you might want to go to jobs in logistics. Or if you were a pet groomer, you might want to go to Pet Groomer's website. These are all websites that you can actually look and see jobs at. Indeed, the one next to the green arrow, Indeed.com is one of the biggest ones right now. It's a job aggregator, so it pulls in from lots of other types of job sites and puts them all in one place. So that's a great place to start. Simply Hired is one for hourly jobs. A lot of retail and fast food and things are on there. That's a great place for high schoolers to look. So is Snag a Job. All of these are options. Indeed is a great place to start. If you ever want to look up reviews of salaries or positions or company reviews and see what people think of them, they have current and former employees that post reviews of working for a company on glassdoor.com. That's also a great place to look. So we've given all of our information to Petco. We've given our information to Taleo. We are now asked to take a test, and if you look at the top, the website address, and you should be paying attention to these pretty regularly, you're going to see it says basil.peopleanswers.com. People Answers is a place that does psychological or skills-based tests. They have a variety of services that they offer to companies. In this case, we're going to be doing a test, and it's going to make me use a login password and name, just like I logged into the Petco website, which gave the information to Petco and Taleo. I have to log in and make a username and password for this. I would also note that on your spreadsheet. I'd make a column for that. And if you have any questions about how to make a spreadsheet or any of this, please contact the librarian. You can call us or contact us through our website a variety of ways, but we can help you learn how to do all of these things. And we have software to help you so you can learn from home. I also wanted to show you, if you look on the right side of the screen at the green arrow, that you can actually change the language. So if English isn't your first language, please don't be proud. Change the drop down to whatever language that you speak primarily, because you're going to find out that some of these things are logic tests and it doesn't matter what language you do them in. And I think also a lot of companies are looking for bilingual people. It's a bonus. It's a great thing, especially here in Gwinnett. We're a very diverse county. So I would say that you should go ahead and change that. That's my recommendation. Okay, so it tells us we have two tests, one timed, one untimed. The timed one is 10 minutes. So we need an uninterrupted 10 minutes to do this test. It's going to tell you a little bit, if you drop down those boxes, about why you have to do it. Basically, to be successful in applying for this job, you're going to have to do all of the parts. It will kick it out and a person will never see your resume. So always finish all of the parts of the actual test and other parts of the application process. So, are we ready to do a 10-minute test? Yes. What should we gather? Maybe we should gather our calculator just in case we get math questions. Maybe we should gather a pencil and a paper in case we have to write something down or do some math or anything like that. So let's go. You ready? Gives us a little bit of instructions. I always think that you should read the instructions. And if you look at the very last line of this, it says, before starting, please go through the following practice problems. So it does give you an idea of how to do it before you actually are being timed. And then it tells you answer as many questions as you can in the next 10 minutes. The questionnaire will automatically end after 10 minutes. They're going to give you more questions than you could possibly ever do in 10 minutes, which is going to stress you out. It's going to be pages and pages and pages of questions. Let's begin. As you can see at the top of the page, it says that I have 3 minutes and 20 seconds of time remaining, but I have actually taken some screenshots of some of the question types that you can get. This one is 1 is to X as X is to 64. What number can replace X? You're solving for X. You're doing algebra. This one is Atlantic is to ocean as novel is to, and then you have to choose which word goes in there and the analogy. Qualm is the opposite of. Now you're seeing that if you speak another language other than English as your first language, you might want to do this in your native language. It might be a little easier because the vocabulary can get pretty difficult. A banner requires 1 1/3 sections of plastic. How many banners can be made from 12 sections of plastic? You're doing some math here. And then this one is read the following definition and choose the first letter of the word that best fits it. Porous, water-absorbing mass of fibers. Now, I have 1 minute and 11 seconds left, so I'm pretty frazzled by this point, but I'm guessing that if I'm looking down through there, I'm going to guess that this is the S for sponge. This is a basic seeing which number comes next in the sequence, and so you have to figure out the pattern of the sequence. I'll give you a second to look at it. 7/8 divided by 0.25 is, and this is where your calculator comes in. We have 10 seconds left. Oh, it ended. Okay, well, we're done here. So we have had a frazzled 10 minutes of frantically trying to put in answers. We're feeling a little overwhelmed. It does tell you that you can sign out first to take a break and sign back in to finish, or we can sit here for a minute and move the mouse but not do the next part until we've calmed down a bit. And I recommend calming down a bit so that you kind of pull yourself back together, maybe drink some water, relax for a second before you delve into the next part, because you want to be thinking clearly. We're going to be rating things from completely disagree all the way to neutral, and then going positive from neutral to completely agree. It's a 7-point scale from no, 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 all the way to yes, 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 with a neutral in the middle. Now, it tells you in the hint, if you're looking on the left side, second paragraph, distorting your answers or your responses to make yourself appear more favorable are not actually going to help you because there's no right or wrong answers. Now, I've done a lot of research looking through what you should do with these tests, and I've actually come to some conclusions about them. One of the things that I found out was that you should probably answer questions on tests for employment purposes from the mindset that you're answering about your work self, what you're like at work. You're not necessarily going to say what I do when I hang out with my friends at a party after work in my personal life. You want to keep the mindset that you are thinking about this from a work perspective. The second thing you're going to find is that you want to be consistent when you answer questions. And the questions are not always back to back about the same subject. And I'm going to show you an example of that. On this page, we started getting questions, right? It's a 7-point scale from completely disagree all the way to completely agree. I have marked with a green arrow a blue bar that goes across that grayish bar that goes at the top. So that's our progress. And I've actually taken screenshots of some of the things in here to show you kind of how the questions go. You're going to find that there's several themes, 8 or 10 themes maybe in these questions. And when I take screenshots and look at them when I'm calm and not really taking the test, I can actually pull out some to show you what I mean about being consistent. When we were probably like a fifth of the way through the test, we get the question, I avoid correcting coworkers when I know that they are wrong. Now we're going to answer this about correcting people, right? That's the essence of the question. We're going to answer this question. And then we're going to go to the next one. And it's just a little bit later if you look at the blue progress bar. I state my opinions to my boss, even if she or he might disagree. And you're going to look at this, and that's kind of the same sort of question, right? It's the same theme. This is kind of about communication, maybe, right? And these are all spread throughout, mixed with several other types of questions or themes of questions. And you're not really thinking clearly that I need to be consistent about how communicative I am at work. But as I go to the next page, you'll see that we're further into this. We're more than halfway done. And we get the question, I correct my boss when I know he or she is wrong. So that might be also communication. And then the next one, when we're almost finished with the test, is I will correct my boss if I know he or she is wrong. I'll go back. I correct my boss when I know he or she is wrong. So if we were to say, I agree, if I said, I agree, yes, and then said, I will correct my boss if he or she is wrong, and then I said disagree, then that doesn't look like I really know what I think about that. So I think the key here is to probably be consistent. Those are pretty close questions, I think. I will agree with my boss to prevent a confrontation. This is about communication, really, but you see that that question's a little further toward the end. I avoid correcting my boss when I know he or she is wrong. So you're kind of coming up with what you really think and trying to be consistent throughout this. It's meant to be hard, and you're being asked questions in various ways about several subjects, not just this one about communication. So it's very confusing, and you just kind of get lost in there. Now, the pro tip for this is that if you were doing this actual test through People Answers, you can go forward and backward to check yourself a little bit, and you're not timed. So that's something that you could take a leisurely time to look at. Really, you start thinking, this is a lot for a part-time job, and I'm not sure that I really want to do this, but just fight that and realize that spending quality time on an application is better than putting in 50 applications that are barely filled out. Now, let's talk about what Petco gets back. People Answers is actually owned by a company called Infor, and I did some looking around their website and found a couple of things. They call this predictive talent analytics, or at least one of their tests. And they talk about that they have people complete this assessment, and then they look at your behavioral DNA. So they're trying to see like what you're like. If you take this job, whether or not they would recommend you for this job. They're actually making kind of a judgment about you for Petco and telling Petco what they think of you after taking this test and the test with the math and the words and the analogies on it. And on number 3 of predictive talent analytics is the system compares the candidate's behavioral DNA against a performance profile. In other words, what that means, I believe, is that companies who have employees already there sometimes give these tests to their employees and make them take it again. And they know from reviews who's really doing a great job. So if you were someone who managed inventory and you were a rock star, they might think, man, if I had 5 more of Ethan, then I would love that because he's so good at it. These are his talents. So they might give Ethan the test, and then they might have actually made a profile of what Ethan as a worker is like as an inventory clerk. And they might actually compare future candidates for the job to try to get more Ethans. Then they generate a report, basically. Now, if you look on the right side of the screen, I pulled out a sample report that Infor had given people for a candidate whose name is Yvette Gibson. Now, it tells you a score on the top right of 83 and that she's recommended with qualifications. These are actually tailored usually to the job because it says that this is a management candidate. So different job positions might have different things that they're looking for. And it gives you kind of an idea of what we've got going on. And for her test, her questions must have been about problem solving, work style, needs and motivations, working with others, and leadership approach because it's a management job. The one that we looked at might have been about communication. Several of the questions that I didn't show you screenshots of were about need for advancement or recognition. So it might be like, what's your motivator, which is on here as well. And it gives them scores. You can kind of see what people answers think about this candidate, and it tells you what you might like or not like. And depending on your team and what you're looking for as a hiring manager, you can make some observations about a person before you've ever called them. People have very strong opinions about this if you read forums online about applicant tracking systems and tests and all of these things, but this is the way it is to apply for job now. While we were off doing the people answers questions, we have now been brought back to petco.taleo.net. And guess what? We've been logged out of Taleo because we were inactive while we were on people answers for so long. We are now a returning user, and this is where you need the username and the password that you have to log back in to finish the application. We're going down, and next thing I know, it tells me I need tax information just to apply for a job. I'm not even working there, and I'm giving them tax information. There is a warning about a pop-up blocker in red there, and I would pay attention to that. There is a link next to the first green arrow if you go down the screen to complete a tax questionnaire. But if you look at the second green arrow, you have to click the link to start it, but it's also going to tell you you may choose to participate in the questionnaire. But yet again, I know it says that you can choose to or not, but you can't really, because if you don't fill that out, it's an incomplete application, and most places will not actually put you into the pile of resumes as candidates for a job. The next thing it goes to is that it tells me that my browser blocked the questionnaire pop-up. I was using Chrome at the time, and I did have to go, and if you look at the top of the screen where the green arrow is, look above that box. It says pop-up blocked in gray. I had to click that to get this pop-up box here, and then I had to always allow pop-ups and redirects from petco.taleo.net and change that blue dot before I hit done to be able to get to the test. That's something to be on the lookout for, because sometimes if it doesn't keep opening, it's a pop-up blocker. So now we've given our information to Petco, we've given our information to Taleo, we've given our information to People Answers, and now we are asked to give it to jobcredits.com. It's going to ask you for a login name and password yet again. You're going to be making a third one, so I'd add that to your column about logins you had for the Petco application. And then it's going to start asking you questions. And these are going to feel very invasive at times for people. And you're going to see what I mean. So have you or your family received SNAP benefits or food stamps in the last year? Have you received any kind of government assistance in the last 2 years? It's going to ask you all sorts of things like that. And you're probably thinking that they're discriminating against you if you have. But what if I told you they're not? They're actually looking to get tax credits as a company by hiring people that need these things. Has your current or previous employment been affected by COVID-19? This is a recent question that's been added, and that's part of some of the tax credits for helping the economy. So these questions are actually ones that they're looking for because you're actually filling out Form 8850 for the IRS. And look, it's going to ask you for your name and your social security number. And this is before you've ever gotten a job or heard from anyone. No one's called you on the phone from Petco yet to ask you about, coming in for an interview or anything. And they want to know all of this about you. Now, you have to answer these questions pretty honestly because you're submitting a form to the IRS. And Petco's by no means the bad guy here. We're not trying to pull them out as the bad guys or anything. This is very typical of all job applications. You have to go through these applicant tracking systems, and they want lots of information now from either the applicant tracking system itself or the other companies that are provided to do tax credits or tests. And you can't really escape doing this because the applicant tracking systems are so common. Of the Fortune 500 companies, 98% are using an applicant tracking system now. So there's no way for you to really avoid this unless you really do find like a dry cleaners with a handwritten sign in the window and go put in a paper application or talk to them. And those places are very few and far between, and most job recruiters won't talk to you in person anymore before you filled out something online or in a kiosk inside a store. And the reason they want you to do that is you're putting your resume and your information in the stack in the applicant tracking system, in this case, Taleo. So after you've given your name and social security number, we're going to go down and e-sign it and continue it. If you look at the top, we are 3 steps from the bottom. We're on diversity information. There are some parts about being a veteran on the right side defined for you. On these boxes, they're all starred, so you do have to answer them. On some of these, you can actually put prefer not to report, or I don't want to say, or something like that. On these questions only, though. Usually that's not an option for the other tests, but it is sometimes for diversity information. And these are, again, a way to get tax credits as a company for the federal government. They're looking for people sometimes to be more diverse. If you go through this, we're now at the second to the last part, and you're going to have to e-sign this. At this point, you've given your information to Petco, you've given your information to Taleo, you've given your information to People Answers, you've given it to jobcredits.com, and you're now ready to finally say, okay, all these 4 people can see my information and cull it together and send it to Petco, and you're going to enter your name, and it's going to ask for part of your social and your zip code to identify that it's really you. And then at the top, it's going to say step 11 out of 11, which is review and submit. Remember, it told us we had 12 at the very front. And the process is finally completed. You want to make sure at the end that you really does go through and you don't leave the site until it says thank you for your job application or something similar. Now that we've gone through the entire job application, let's take a look at some safety tips. Unfortunately, there are people that will take advantage of you while you're searching for a job. So a few tips to share with you are that you should probably research companies before sending them your information. If you're on Craigslist and you see an opportunity that looks too good to be true, it probably is. If you see a posting that looks like the perfect job for you and you want to click it and just send them all of your information, please stop and research before you do that. You can look up companies on the Better Business Bureau's website and other places to see if they're legitimate companies or if anyone on the internet is complaining about being scammed by them. Sometimes you can find complaints about them on forums. And it's important to remember that you should probably go directly to the company's website and not go through Craigslist to submit any information. Additionally, you should never have to pay for anything upfront. There are companies out there that want you to buy their product, to resell it, to be a salesperson for their company. A lot of email solicitations are sent asking people to do this, but you should never have to pay for anything upfront to work. So keep that in mind. You should also never pay to receive any job postings, federal or otherwise. There are places that try to charge people for these, but these are all free and available on the internet. You should also be wary of responding to unsolicited job offers through email or through mail through your mailbox. And if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Be careful out there. Gwinnett County Public Library does offer some resources for free to help you out, and you can access most of these from home. The first one is Learning Express Library. Learning Express Library is a great way to take practice tests for the ASVAB or for different tests that you might encounter, the Postal Service, anything like that. So if you are looking to take practice tests to prepare for something, Learning Express Library is a great place to start. We also offer Gale courses, which are real courses that last 6 weeks and have a real instructor, and you earn a certificate at the end once you finish the course. And the way that these work is that they start every few weeks, and you can start the course as long as you're not more than 2 weeks behind, and you can catch up, and you are assigned work to do, and you turn it in, and you have someone who's actually there for you to ask questions, who's grading your work. So it's a free way to take a course and get a certificate that you could add to your LinkedIn profile or attach to your resume. Job and Career Accelerator has everything job related. It pulls jobs in from Indeed.com. It also offers tips for interviews, tips for what to wear to an interview. You can also take tests to see what jobs would be the perfect match for you and what type of career that you might like. It also lets you look up projected growth for career and the average salary for the whole country and by state so that you can make a good career decision if you're changing fields. Reference USA is a great way to look for a job if you want to send out resumes to certain companies in your industry, and it's done geographically, so it's a great way to find a job near your house. You can, for example, put in that you want to search for jobs within a 15-mile radius that repair airplanes near your house. And you can actually find companies to send your resume and cover letter to, or that you could contact to see about job postings or look up their website. And all that's linked right in Reference USA. It's a great tool. I highly recommend learning Reference USA. All 4 of those that I've mentioned so far can be done from home. You can go through the library's website to access them. And if you need help doing so, you can always go to our website, which is gwinnettpl.org, and you can send us a chat or call us, and we'll help you access them if you're having a hard time. The last resource I'd like to tell you about is called Book a Librarian. This is a service where you get a one-on-one appointment for help with an actual librarian. It can be anything from how to search for jobs, how to make a spreadsheet, how to save things to your flash drive. You can also get resume help and a variety of other things. The great part about Book a Librarian is that it's a free appointment for help, and you can book more than one appointment. So if you need a little bit more help, you can actually book an additional appointment. And that's a free service that we offer at Gwinnett County Public Library. Well, that's all that I have for you today. This is a lot of information, and if you have any questions, you can contact us at gwinnettpl.org. I hope this has been helpful, and good luck in your job search. Thank you.